is Leticia and Romina. We are the founders of POS Fashion Hub. We are super happy to have you all here, the designers and all our special guests and of course the speakers. Thank you.
Well, for those who doesn't know what we're doing, we are basically a platform that shows sustainable fashion brands for all over the world in these amazing venues, as you can see. And well, next one is going to be in Barcelona. For somebody that is curious about it, we can connect as well. And well, we're super grateful to have you all here, and also Patrick Duffy and Janine for Fashion for Development Solution and the lineup that we have for the day.
Just to let you know, Fashion for Development has been going on their 10th year anniversary. We started kind of out of the auspice of the United Nations through Kofi Annan. Might be a little bit older than some of you here, but it was through some points that we really wanted to push through social change and opportunities, not only in the environment, but through social and economic programs. Obviously, we've seen some great people have been involved with us through UN Global AIDS, through the Food Bank, through UN Global Compact, and obviously a host of celebrities. That's not the work that we're doing. We're there to shine the light upon what's actually happening. And here today, the reason why we're really encouraged to be here and really getting behind this movement, and you'll have an incredible lineup of not only supply chain people, but people who have built supply chains. We have Mike Barry here today, who we're really honored to have, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about his journey on what he started at Marks & Spencer's and really how far they've come as well. So today the lineup is about solutions. What can we do to change the opportunity in the fashion industry? And it's not, we know all the problems that are happening, right? And today's not that. It's not to focus on that. The focus is, how can you be creative? How can you be inspired? How can you do the right thing, both for the environment, but also for the social programs? Knowing that people are going to get paid a living wage, knowing that you're going to scale possible indigenous programs, knowing that you're not polluting, and that Dan's going to talk to you about transparency and traceability. These are the things that we really want you to walk away with, to know that you can be inspired to do things the right way. It is the way forward. It is the only way forward for our industry. And we don't have to stop being creative and know that we can have solutions out there to support this changing environment that we have right now. So today I'm going to leave you with one last video right now, which is our platform, F4D Solutions. We are really connecting. We are launching also in Premier Vision in Paris this week. We're going to be announcing our collaborations globally, the large platform that we have on connective tissue, where we are the stop of the one solution for anything and everything that you need to have in the supply chain. We are going to give you real content, real information, real suppliers that are vetted and proven, that have the capabilities to give you what you need. And so we're going to ask you to connect with the POS girls on the next level. They're going to come back to you, I guess, at the end of this to really talk about the sign up and how really to connect. But I'm going to leave you with our solution opportunities and then an array of amazing people who are going to inspire you about solutions that are out there now. Thanks.
Well, I'll describe what our company does. So we're a software as a solution company. So think Salesforce, but providing connection between sustainable producers and sustainable brands. My background is, before I started Bext, I spent 8 years in the DR Congo, and one of the projects that we funded and I ran was exporting the first conflict-free minerals directly to the United States. So while I was doing that, as early as 2007 and 2008, we were tracing those minerals through every step, making sure they were mined artisanally and made sure that the individuals were paid. And what we saw on the ground in Congo, even in the most remote parts of the world, was that the individuals we were paying with cash, with fiat currencies, we would see in the villages that the individuals were exchanging digital currency, right? Everyone, even in probably the most remote area of the world, people were exchanging digital currency. And so as a technologist, my background is technology. I used to be a professor at the University of Chicago teaching how technology impacts the developing world. And for the last 20 years, I've really been working in the developing world as an entrepreneur. But what I saw was both inspiring in the sense that we can make digital payments, we can track data all the way back to every individual producer, but also frightening, because a lot of you aren't old enough to remember the 1990s, but everyone said the internet was going to be this great thing where everyone could be their own entrepreneur. And I know a lot of us are entrepreneurs, but in general, it just made companies bigger and bigger. And so now the plan with blockchain and every other technology that you're thinking about, they say that the individuals can be their own entrepreneurs, right, on the ground. But when you connect people, what happens is the big corporations take over. They vertically integrate, and we're seeing that today in places like Sierra Leone, in the Congo, and companies become bigger and bigger. And what I saw in the Congo after living there for 8 years is that when companies become bigger and bigger and they vertically integrate into the developing world, only really bad things happen. So I founded Bext really to provide a way of making connections between suppliers and brands. So our platform this year will touch probably about 350,000 individuals across multiple supply chains: cotton, essential oils, palm oil, some of the most critical supply chains in the world, but also some of the most corrupted.
We are part of the supply chain in a way or another. And starting from me, from Class, we are a consulting company that since 2007 is specialized in integrating sustainability inside the textile industry. So since actually from 12 years, we make a huge research all over the world about which are the best fibers, yarns, fabric, dyeing and finishing systems that can help the industry to be as much as they can sustainable. And well, I will start with an introduction about sustainability. And I see a lot of young faces, so I guess that is the perception of sustainability, and I'm hoping you have a different opinion, but this is what the market think about sustainability, generally speaking. So no color, no performance, do it yourself, dye it with onions, that's perfect. But when it comes to industry, we need to move something different. So this is a big word. I mean, what does sustainability mean? And I'm sure if I'm asking you, all of you, what does it mean, I should get probably 100 different answers, because what I think about sustainability is probably different what you think and what you think. So we try to put, let's say, not a statement, but to give our vision around sustainability. So we always start from the three-dimensional approach. That's how we call it. So we are in the fashion industry, we are in apparel. Everything has to start from the design. If something is sustainable but it's not looking good, I don't buy it. I mean, everything is run by the design, even the chairs, the glasses, the ice cream. The packaging is fundamental, right? So we need to start always from the design. It has to be also innovative. So every material, every yarn, every fabric, every garment has to perform. And on top of, has to be responsible. So we see sustainability just as an added value that can help and can be recognized from the consumer. And of course, this is what we call responsible innovation. At the end, we are innovating, but in a responsible way. That's how it should be the future. And well, this responsible innovation is fundamental in two moments. So the first one is the creation of the garments. You always have to think about how to create and which are the ingredients of your garment, of your fabric. And of course, marketing and communication. You can do the best garment out of the world that is also sustainable, but if your consumer don't understand it, you're just more expensive, probably. And well, we try to deep inside what does it mean to be responsible. And we created this chart that it's quite self-explaining, but everything has to start from the company. So if the company is not committed to sustainability, well, it's not working. I mean, it's the company that makes product and non-product that makes company. So it's important that the vision of the company is sustainable, is ethical as an innovation approach. And then we go to the products. Ingredients are fundamental. Probably the biggest impact of the textile industry is coming from ingredients and the production of them. So it's always important to check them. And then we move to what we call the new values, so what millennials as are looking into, transparency, traceability on top of. And as you see, we put certification on the bottom because these are tools that are proving actually that what we're doing is true and not vice versa. And I'm not going this, but this is just a jungle of certification that you should know ideally to do something concrete and authentic, but it's a mess. So I won't go inside that, but just now because it's really crazy. I mean, each single one, I can talk forever about them. But depending on which is your brand DNA, you have to look only about 2, 3, 4 of them. So it's not so complicated if you know what you want. And that's the biggest question. I mean, as a consultant, when we are going to brands and they're asking us, give me the best sustainable fabric. And I cannot answer, of course, because if I'm talking to Patagonia, they would like to be probably something recycled. If I'm talking to Stella McCartney, it's going to be animal welfare. If I'm talking with Eileen Fisher, probably it's going to be organic. So I cannot have an answer for each single of them. So we need to analyze every single brand, and you have to understand what does it mean for you to be sustainable. And, well, just also then talk before a little bit, but what consumers think about sustainability. So we have numbers that said that millennials are actually okay to pay more for sustainability, but we have a huge problem that only 34% of them are really buying sustainable things. And I think that this number is actually way too high. I mean, I don't believe that 34% of millennials is buying sustainability. I'm not. So, and two big problem and actually opportunity. The first one is that we are not finding cool products in the market. So we don't like the design of the product. So that's why we're not buying them. And the second reason is because we do not trust anymore the wording around sustainability. I mean, organic, what does it mean anymore? Recycling, what does it mean anymore? Nothing. Unless you are a technical guy that knows exactly what does it mean, it's quite impossible to give the value to this wording. So that's a big problem. But also the push, so we see that actually consumers are willing to buy them. And now we have also the push of retailers. I mean, huge retailers are now saying that they are willing to work only with brands that are offering sustainable products. And not because they are altruistic, as you can imagine, but just because they found interesting the possibility to actually make more money in sustainability. At the end, it's all about business. We're not here to make blah, blah. All of us, at the end, want to create a business in a sustainable way, of course. So these are names that are making something around sustainability. And, well, basically, I would just summarize the slide saying on the 4 points that McKinsey, so a big consulting company, advises fashion companies to put sustainability in the board priorities. So this is something that is no more a trend, is a need of the companies. And actually to worry about circular economy, because this is another big topic of the textile industry. A lot of designers, a lot of big brands are looking into it, but what does it mean? So quite easy. Circular economy is an economic system, so it's not just, again, a greenwashing. It's an economic system that reduces waste, keeping the product and materials at the maximum values during the whole lifetime of them. And we are now between linear and recycling, more or less, and of course we want to aim to the circular economy. Where circular economy, actually, we are taking the principle of cradle to cradle that I won't explain too much, but basically we have two cycles, the biological cycle and the technological cycle. So following one of these two, you are able to reduce to zero your waste because or are degrading in a natural way to the earth, or technically they're able to transform them in another material. And well, of course, circular economy is based on pillars. Design is fundamental. I told you before that the designer is influencing a lot the sustainability. So these are just some influence areas. Of course, ethical values, depending on which kind of fabric you're selecting, which kind of yarns. You have different region of sourcing, and indeed, some ethical values. Sourcing a material, pattern design, the ways that they're generating in creating pattern. Dyeing and finishing, huge amount. Manufacturing, of course, packaging, transportation, energy, water, chemicals, CO2 savings, animal friendly for someone not, and transparency and traceability, fundamental, and third-party measurement. This is critical for us, is a key value that everyone should be interested of, because it's not good. I mean, if I'm sustainable, it's not me that is proving myself that I'm good, but there has to be someone else that is saying that I'm truly sustainable. That's actually the role of certification, that sometimes I'm not really doing that, but that's another big discussion. Well, design strategy, I'm not a designer, you know probably better than me. But, the longevity and the recyclability, it's something important. I mean, I was making a discussion before, but if you think closely and actually deeper about your product, you have to select the fibers and the yarns depending on which is the application of your garment. You cannot use, for example, polyester for a t-shirt that is thought to last 2 weeks. That makes no sense because it's not a fiber that degrades in 2 weeks. So this is something that people need to start thinking of. The end of life of a product is not easy, of course, but it's something that the designer has to have in mind. And actually, what is our specialty? Smart innovation, so materials. So as I told you before, we are looking all over the world, looking for the best materials, the best companies out there, and we have here 2 great examples of them. And I'm not talking about natural because Giannis will talk for me, but we try to move a little bit from the conventional organic, and he will explain why. And then we open the door about these transformed materials. So what, generally speaking, is renowned to be recycled. And well, when it comes to natural fiber, so the left side of the slide, it's quite easy, meaning that recycled wool, recycled cotton is something that you always have in mind. But just to let you know, the right side of the slide didn't exist since 5 years ago, because technology is moving so fast that we now have a lot of opportunities. So what is really important to understand when you're looking into recyclability, especially when it comes to yarn, is that not all recycle is good, because it's really depending a lot from the technology that you put behind, meaning that the recycled polyester could be excellent, could be the worst thing in the world. Like the cotton, could be the best thing or the worst thing because of the water. So just to let you know that in the polyester, you have basically the chemical and the mechanical recycle process. When it comes to the chemical recycle process, not sure it's the best choice. And then we have the new generation of materials. So new generation of materials are quite innovative. And just to mention a couple of words about ROICA. So ROICA is the new generation of elastomer. So the fiber that is giving you the stretch in your garment that since 2 years ago was not possible to create it in a sustainable way. We partnered up with Asahi Kasei, that is a Japanese company that finally developed the first sustainable elastomer. So since 2 years ago, if you have a beautiful organic cotton t-shirt with 1% elastomer, couldn't be 100% sustainable because that 1% was not really, of course, sustainable. So with these Japanese guys, they've created this polymer that is created at least from 58% of recycled material. And it's the only one in the world with the GRS certification, the specific certification for the recyclability. And on top of this, they created the first cradle-to-cradle certified yarns. So coming to the slide that I showed you before, is a yarn that when it degrades to the environment naturally, is not releasing bad substances to the environment. And this is another important thing about biodegradability. Biodegradability is not always good. This is important to say because you can have a material that can biodegrade, and while it does, it's releasing toxic gases, for example. So be very, very careful in the information that you receive from the market, because we know that a lot of people is, let's say, using the word to create marketing competitive advantage. So, and ask question. Of course, our generation, it's more, let's say, it's easier for us to ask a lot of questions, and please do it, because this is the only way that we have to change the market.
So today we're talking about supply chain. So I just want to get a quick show of hands. Like, how many of you are designers? Okay. How many of you are manufacturers? Okay. Suppliers, materials, fabric, textile people, supply chain experts? Okay, there we go. Supply chain experts? Okay, great. Okay, great. So, Janine, the concept that she's put together today is about solutions. So a lot of times in the fashion industry, when we're talking about, especially from a design standpoint, is how do we create a beautiful design that's ethical and sustainable, and where do we find those solutions? So how many people have found that to be a challenge? Yeah, can I actually ask a question to somebody who can tell me what the biggest challenge that they think sourcing it? Maybe you'd like to share something really quickly?
Yes. For one, because we work with indigenous tribes, you know, it's hard to scale up, but we made the challenge an opportunity by saying this is more special and more exclusive and handmade.
So that's interesting. So everybody, when we're talking about design, everybody has a unique kind of framework or a unique standpoint that they're looking from to make their brand interesting in their own. So everybody has their own unique set of challenges. But the most important thing about today is that the lineup has an incredible amount of people who are here to help provide solutions. So before I get to that, I just wanted to introduce myself. As you can see from this picture, I'm Patrick Duffy, and I started my journey in sustainability back in 2013, and I had no clue what I was doing. At the time, I still don't really, I'm just kidding. And I started doing clothing swaps, and I started with one clothing swap in Copenhagen back in 2013, and it began my passion for wanting to change the world. So from that point, I went from one clothing swap to now we have 53 cities and 42 countries that we have our ambassadors. We can't keep track of how much clothing we've redirected from landfill, but we stopped counting at 1.4 billion pounds. We have about 2 billion media impressions from all of the people that we work with and influencers and organizations to help promote the idea of sustainability and circularity. So that began to really light my fire on sustainability and how I can make an impact in the world. So now fast forwarding to 2019, I became more impassioned, and I thought, well, this is a really great platform, Global Fashion Exchange, and we're helping people all over the world, but I now have become really concerned and obsessed with supply chain, and it's something that I've been talking about and like banging on about forever. Like, you have to be circular and ethical and traceable and transparent, all these buzzwords that I kept throwing out there. But I thought to myself then, like, do I really know what these words mean? Do I really have any experience like with a supply chain? The answer was no. So I thought, okay, time for me to practice what I preach. It was at that time, I think about 2 years ago, I met this incredible woman called Lan Vi Wen. We were both speaking at the United Nations about sustainability, circularity, and indigenous communities. And turns out that she has an ethical, sustainable, people-powered supply chain based in Vietnam called Fashion for Freedom. And her main, I'm getting kind of breathy talking about it. Her main focus, I like to have fun. Her main focus is, it's two things. It's supporting, it's social and environmental, and trying to address and solve those two issues with Fashion for Freedom. So in terms of creating product for her supply chain. So she and I got to be very good friends. And then we just decided one day, out of kind of thin air, that we would take on the fashion industry by deciding to create our own brand together. So that's what we did. And we're actually super excited to be here with you. This is our baby steps out into the world with the new collection that the new concept that we've launched called Mr. Duffy, and I'd like to share a little bit about that with you. So really quickly, again, going back to the ethos of the talk, I think it's really important when we're talking about how to create something, and when we're looking into the future and looking into the past of the things that aren't working, you have to challenge yourself, and you have to say, geez, these things aren't working, the retail stores aren't working, supply chains aren't working, all of these challenges. So you really have to kind of bring it back and start from scratch, which is challenging because that's not an easy thing to do. So the roadmap that we created is completely unique, but it starts here. I'm just gonna roll this little rack out. We start with indigenous communities. Oopsies, that's okay. We start with indigenous communities based in Vietnam. And what we decided to do, our biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges that we were looking at, was about how do we source and get our textiles, and how do we do that ethically and sustainably. And so what we decided to do was actually create everything from waste. So everything that we do, everything I'm wearing, down to the shoes, the suits, and everything that you see is made from dead stock and waste, and how we do that is quite interesting. So, but we had to innovate how we think to do that. So, you know, fabric is made from thread, right? Thread comes on spools, and spools oftentimes go to waste just like fabric does, or just like textiles does, pre-consumer, post-consumer. So we kind of brought it back a little bit and thought, maybe we can get our hands on some of that thread. And so we did. And so we reached out and contacted Coates. Do you guys know what Coates is, the thread company? The oldest thread company in the world, and actually a heritage UK company, which is pretty amazing. So we reached out to Coates and we said, all right, give us 10 tons of your thread. So they did. They just kind of sent us a bunch of boxes of thread, and we took it to our indigenous weavers in Vietnam. And what we ended up doing was creating our own fabric, and that fabric turned into this. And so you can see that we came up with a solution to an issue. So we, all that thread would have gone to waste. As you can see here, all that thread would have gone to waste, and so what we did was redirect and recreate with it.
That is the system that you are disrupting. And if there's one message I've got on the next few minutes for all of you, is how very important you are. What you're doing is sparking a revolution, a change. So look, all the problems, environmental, social, animal welfare-wise, of the fashion industry are well told. I'm not going to repeat them now. I'm just going to remind us of some numbers. In the year 2000, the world consumed 80 billion garments of clothing in a year. Today, it's about 120 billion, 50% more. We're heading towards 200 billion. And if all we do is make each of those garments a little less bad than was the case 20 years ago, we'll have failed, because consumption will have swamped everything we try to achieve. Now, the problems that you well know about the social environmental impact of clothing have been around for 20 years. People have known about them, nothing has happened, or very little has happened. But that is changing, and let me explain why. Every industrial sector in the world is going through a sustainability revolution, a disruption, where for a decade the incumbents think, that's not for me, nothing will change, it's peripheral. It happened in the power sector. They believed that coal would remain there forever, that wind and solar was peripheral, that wind and solar cost far more, no one would ever touch it without subsidy. Today, wind and solar will outcompete economically most coal power stations anywhere in the world. To be in coal today is to be left behind a dinosaur. The same in mobility. For years, people talked about electric vehicles and laughed at them from the big car companies. They were ugly, they were slow, they were expensive, they were inefficient. Today, electric vehicles are outcompeting in the internal combustion engine very, very quickly. Change is coming. And what's driving change in the mobility industry is Tesla. Tesla turned up with a beautiful, aspirational, high-performance car that people want to buy. Not just because it's greener, but it's a beautiful car. And that's revolutionizing the whole sector. So what started off as a niche dream by one entrepreneur has revolutionized the entire $1 trillion a year industry around the world to change. That's your potential. The same is happening in the food industry, the world that, again, I know so very, very well. For decades, the food industry thought it just had to do a bit of pesticide reduction, a bit of ethical management in supply chains, and that was enough. But look what's happened the last 12 months. Plastics, the storm of protest about how we use plastics today. A plant-based diet disrupting the meat industry. The rise of personalization of food to deal with well-being and planet at the same time. So here is a food industry that's stepping into disruption in the way that power and mobility has already started, which takes us to this industry, fashion. And again, for decades, the fashion industry, the incumbents laughed. You'd never have the scale, you'd never have the price point, you'd never connect with the consumers with complex social environmental stories. Well, that's changing. And if we're going to achieve a truly sustainable fashion industry, we need to do two things. First, the incumbents who are selling 120 billion garments, they need to step forward. And most of the technical solutions they need to become much, much better exist. The Global Fashion Agenda, Textiles Exchange, the HIG Index, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. Everything they need to be dramatically better exists. So that's the second phase that we need. We need chief executives. We need the boardrooms to say, I want this to be part of how I run my business. And I saw the pace and the power of that at Marks & Spencer. When the boardroom says, I want change, it comes. And what Paul Polman, the former chief executive of Unilever, doing today is extraordinary. He stepped out of Unilever. He's formed something called Imagine, which is convening the chief executives, and I stress the word chief executives, of the world's biggest fashion companies. It was announced at the G7 summit in Biarritz last month, to come together, to stand together, to change together. 25% by volume. So I think what that's about, 30 billion garments a year, are now committed to dramatic change. So that's the second phase of incumbent change. And the third and final thing you need to do is realize that each of those little silos that you're working on is just a silo. We all participate in the system. And to change a system, you need the entire system in the room. So as much as you can have retailers and brands in there, you need producers, you need cotton farmers, and you need the world's biggest social media giants as well, because they're the ones that are driving this consumption-based way of living your lifestyle, wear it once, snap your picture, throw it away. They all need to be in the room.
What is Supreme Green Cotton? It's a unique project, a system of solutions, or better, a chain of values that is coming through trust and partnership. It's characterized by high quality and sustainability. For us and for everybody, high quality should be equal to sustainability. We're using science and cutting-edge technology, and everything, of course, is performed through our holistic approach and holistic philosophy.
I'd like to introduce Thomas Ball from Fashion for F4D Solutions, who is this organization is putting on this incredible event. Sophie Slater from Birdsong, Beatrice Turner, and Sruti, founder of Love and Blossoms. And I'll be moderating. Great. Hi, guys. What's up? So you guys have an important role that you're playing, which is about the communication of all this. But I would just like to go quickly down the line. If you can give like a quick topical introduction to who you are and what you do, maybe we could start.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Shruti and I'm a vegan fashion blogger. And I also recently started my own vegan and ethical clothing line. And I also have a charity in India for kids.
That's great.
Hi, my name is Beatrice Turner. I'm a blogger and I write for The Fair Edit, which is a blog about ethical fashion, sustainable living, parenting, motherhood, and everything in between.
Hi there, I'm Tom Ball. I work for F4D Solutions, and believe it or not, 10 years ago, I was its first intern, and I've never managed, obviously, to find a successful career to replace it. So here I am. Obviously, our platform, as you've seen earlier today, is about partnering up with the future, the way forward. It's our hashtag. We want to find a way of working with people like Pause, with people like Class, to create, a genuine difference. There's a lot going on out there to do with sustainability, but whether or not it's actually making a difference, that's why we're here. So.
Hiya, I'm Sophie Slater, and I'm co-founder and kind of marketing comms person for Birdsong London. And we are a ethical, sustainable, locally made social enterprise fashion brand. And we work with local women's organisations down the road in Tower Hamlets. And we know all our makers by name. We go to their house for tea. I've been to some of them's family weddings. And we pay London living wage. And try and kind of use our brand to implement a bit more hope and change in the fashion industry, whilst at the same time creating beautiful garments.
Actually, hold on to that mic. I'm going to ask you the first question. So what role, since you've got the mic, what role do influencers and brands play in pushing forward the sustainable fashion movement?
As a brand owner, I feel like it's completely up to brands. I think a lot of us talk about conspicuous consumption and how individuals have the power to change, and I think there's like a massive place for that. Like personally, I only feel comfortable shopping when I can afford it, with brands that align with my values, and if not, then I'll go secondhand. And even with my food and like trying to ride a bike and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's up to global brands to stop conspicuous production as well. And I feel like there's a lot of talk in sustainability on individual actions, but we also need to be mobilizing against, the top 100 companies who create 70% of the emissions. And it's down to brands. They've got the power. I think we need to prioritize planet and people over profit.
Would you like to comment?
I think so. I mean, what I would say is someone who's, not an influencer myself. I don't run a brand. I'm coming at it from a different angle. If you're an influencer, you are effectively the advertisement board for the world. You really do have a bigger say than most people. Obviously action by the brands is key, but influencers have to really think about the message that they put out there. And that's what's great about what some of the, if you are an influencer, or if you want to be an influencer, you can look at the evidence of the work that you see around you. Huge role to play.
Actually, I'm going to choose a different question for you. So there's so much information that's out there. How do you sift through that, and how do you choose what's right to communicate? That must be a difficult job.
I made my page very personal, and I talk about the things that I can relate to. So sometimes I do get approached by brands that have nothing to do with my everyday, the type of clothes that I wouldn't wear, so I just don't go for that. And I just try to be as honest as possible, and this is how I live, and I have this platform, so I'm just sharing with you guys, and it would be good if everyone follow these steps, and less plastic and all that, but just very simple and not like dictating what should be done or not, and very personal.
Do you gravitate towards specific issues with your blog or with your brand, or is there one thing that you focus on, or is it an overarching?
Yeah, I started my blog with, it's called The Fair Edit, because the first problem for me was fair trade and ethical production and how people were being treated. Because I had just had a baby, and I saw moms working in terrible conditions in less developed countries, and I related to that, and I thought, well, I'm talking about fashion, I'm going to talk about this, because I can't be supporting brands that are doing terrible things to moms. So I do gravitate to that, but also everything that comes with having a baby, reusable nappies, and all the waste and things we realize that we create in real life.
And there's so many things to think about, isn't there?
Yeah.
Which means a lot of content, right?
Yeah.
And to you, so what are the most important things with you when you're communicating, and you have with your charity that you said in India? So what are the things that you focus on, and how do you do that?
I think the most important thing is to be true to yourself, because when you are doing something and it comes from the heart, then people automatically connect. So I think with the charity in India, I've always been a humanitarian. I've always loved animals. I've always loved people. So I think with that, it really touches people because it really connects with that part of them, and we all have that part in us. So yeah, I think the most important thing is whatever you do on Instagram, just be true to yourself, whatever that is. And for me, it is definitely veganism and vegan fashion, and I always share the message of not harming animals and protecting the planet. So for me, that's definitely it. And sustainability for me is still a new avenue, so I'm still like getting better at it, but I'm sure as I go along, I will grow as a blogger, so yeah.
And how could you potentially connect on a deeper level with the brand? Is there ways that you can think about, for instance, we're thinking about solutions in organic cotton, and we're talking about, all these different types of things. How could you connect and work with the brand on messaging on a deeper level? So maybe Thomas, want to take that one?
I think, fundamentally, it's brands actually, like Sophie's done. Her and Susanna and the team have created something very differently. And I think, to connect on a deeper level, there has to be an element of traceability. I think as an influencer, yes, you have to be true to yourself. Yes, you have to do it because you want to do it and you're passionate about it. But I would always say is to get a deeper connection, see what you can do about your traceability, about what you're putting out there. I mean, it angers me to see influencers who effectively, obviously they're treating it like a business, which I understand. It's a very big business, but social media is going through its age of maturity, as I see it. We're a little bit less naive about the consequences of what we're putting out there than perhaps we were a few years ago, but there's still a huge way to go. And these individuals, you need to think about the brands, how far you can trace back. If there's anything out there, really look at what you're putting out there before you do, because there's always consequences and there are always more people out there looking than you think. Even if you think you have a small audience, it's much bigger, much bigger.
Okay, so a question that has arisen with me. So personally, I was focusing on the sharing economy for a long time. So I was focusing on clothing swaps, and then recently I just started my own clothing brand. So a lot of my focus has shifted from sharing economy to actually selling things to people. And that's been really challenging for me, because for so long I was saying, you just don't have to buy anything, you can swap for the rest of your life. Well, now I have to sell people stuff. And so I guess the thing is for all of us here that we're super mindful of this type of consumption, how do you do that in a way where that's authentic and that it can be okay for people to consume and okay for people to buy? Because I think, at the end of the day, we are businesses. We have to make money. We have to sustain ourselves. So how do you do that in a way as an influencer and communicate in that way? That's one I really want to know. And there's no right or wrong answer, so just, we're just talking.
Yeah, I think I'm very forward into being more of like a magazine type, and it's like, I'm trying this, these are the pros and the cons, this is where it comes. So I'll do all the homework and say, what do you identify with? Is this the brand you want to buy? And maybe you should save and make sure this is the one you're going to wear at least 30 times, hopefully 100 times. And then you have it for a long time. And I say that a lot. A lot of my clothes are secondhand. And I do renting and swapping. And I put that out there a lot because I don't want to fall into being a bit of a hypocrite. Because consumerism is the worst part. So we have to stop buying. But if you want to buy, I'm going to try to give you as much information as possible. And not just put a garment out there because it's pretty, but have a big caption, talk about what the brand does. And I feel that this is how brands can really connect with the influencer and therefore their followers, is just telling their stories. They're usually smaller brands and they have a story, and they work with people that have a story and who made my clothes and all that. So I think this is the way I see influencing.
So providing solutions to people. I really like the idea of being able to give people the option of, do you subscribe to this, do you not subscribe? So Sophie, what do you think?
I think that's something that's definitely like always a push-pull. Like obviously there's billions of garments already in the world and we're selling more. I think we started with our kind of social impact as our main motivator, providing like dignified, decent wages for women who are really, really skilled. And that for me is the crux of fashion as a force for good, because if, you know, we said that we never want anything new ever again, then these skills would die out. So it's a really tricky one, and we try and mitigate that by using hand-woven khadi, which is near carbon neutral because it's all done by hand, hand-spun, and using like tencel and like really sustainable fabrics. But also it's really tricky. Like I think obviously buying secondhand is brilliant. It's sometimes a luxury for people to have the time to do the research to buy secondhand. And we've just launched a kind of more size inclusive line. We're doing 6 to 24, but also any size above that in our crowdfunder period if you don't see your size. Because we know from our customers how hard it is if you are plus size to shop vintage. Like people were much smaller and like
Special needs.
And you know, like not all vintage fabrics are great for the environment. They're not biodegradable necessarily. Synthetics, if you put them in the wash, they might leak microfibers everywhere. They're not going to like necessarily breathe. I've got some really nice like vintage dresses, but they make me so sweaty and smelly and disgusting. So hence why I'm not wearing them today. But yeah, I think there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to everything. There's like a million different impacts to each single decision we make as brands and as consumers. And I really, really believe that a sustainable, strong economy is giving people decent jobs and decent wages. And yeah, that for me is our main kind of goal as well.
So there's the concept that was just shared. Do you guys know what the hauling, you guys obviously know what hauling is, right? Where you get something, okay. So do you think there could be something similar for ethical fashion where there's a sustainable haul, and any ideas of what that might look like for you?
Yeah, maybe like half charity shop haul.
Okay.
And then a few bits. I always go back to like the way that our parents like consumed fashion, and like my mum growing up in like Yorkshire in the 60s, there was like Whit Sunday and you would get a new outfit one day a year and show it off to the neighbours, and they would give you a penny and you'd do a twirl and you'd look cute, and then you'd pass that outfit down to each of your like siblings, and you would get this beautifully made, like gorgeous garment, full outfit, and like pay it off in installments. And I feel like I think there is a place for like buying better quality things that are obviously really practical, really going to suit you and like be good to your skin and fantastic.
Our company, it is based near Milan, and we are inside the natural park, the Ticino Park. It's a very old family company, and as I told you, the core business of the group is elastic and heart laces for underwear, corsetry, beachwear, outwear, hosiery, and all made with Karl Mayer technology. We are in 5 continents with production, with marketing offices, with sales. We have over 10 million meters of laces produced per year and 15 million of hosiery and seamless garment produced per year, with 80 Karl Mayer knitting looms.
I want to make a statement, a question for you to think while I'm talking to you. And the question is this: how many buttons can you name that are completely eco-friendly? In the tropical forest of Ecuador, a palm grows wildly, producing a fruit that has been used since the 19th century to create buttons, known as tawa buttons or also corozo buttons. The palm has 2 genders, so there is a male and a female. The male produces a flower that is quite big, and because of the natural cycle in the forest, it gets to fertilize the female. And then the female produces a fruit. The fruit can be eaten, but in the first stages, the fruit can be drunk, then can be eaten, and when the ripening process is complete, it gets really hard. and it resembles ivory. One there. And the tree can give this fruit for almost 100 years. The external barks of the seed can be eaten by native animals, and then local communities in the forest or in the surroundings of the forest gets there and collects these seeds when they're already ripened. They take them to cities, and in the cities, hundreds of artisans carve the nuts, the seeds, and create the tawa blanks. These blanks are sent from Ecuador to bottom factories around the world, especially in Europe and Asia. And then the bottom makers, hand in hand with designers like you, give a creative touch to these buttons in elegant ways, or also in a friendly and colorful ways, but always being friendly to nature and biodegradable standards. Yes. Okay.
And then I'm going to bring these guys in here. That was really amazing bird song. Bravo. Really love to see that kind of inclusive, sustainable, social story. It's off the charts. So thank you very much for everyone for coming. I hope that you really got inspired, a little bit educated, a little bit more informed about what the options are for you today in the fashion industry. Hopefully you're going to be curious. You're going to come to see us next Barcelona for the next events. We're going to continue to have more. Stay tuned. We have much more coming on our platform, F4D Solutions, Fashion for Development, Pause Group, Class, unbelievable. Again, all of you guys giving us the solutions. Fantastic. Our social media, where's Eileen and her Bepsy and Leslie? I don't know if they're still here, but to them, Patrick Duffy, honored. Thank you very much for having us. And of course, we had Mike Barry from Marks & Spencer's, which was a real treat. Amazing, inspirational gentleman who I've worked many years with in the industry. And then of course we had Dan Jones, who's really talking and really getting into the depths of what transparency and traceability means to you. So, in closing, you can do a lot, right? There's no despair, there's always hope somewhere. And what we really need to do is to really take the information, do something with it. I'm still wearing my glasses on top of my head. Do something with it and be inspired to continue your creativity and your journey. The industry shouldn't shut down, but we need to make big changes. And we have to do it in this group. If it's not going to be the bigger companies, the future has to be with every one of you who are starting new brands, who are out there, who are really committing to your vision and the vision that you want to see out there. So I'm going to leave it to Letty and Ro, and you take over from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Janine. Come with me. So I hope you have as Janine said, a little bit more information. There's more to come. There's more solutions to come. If you want to be part of the way forward, please connect, send us an email. We'll start the talking there. And now, the gentlemen from, Luca and Walter and Janice, they're going to be in front for you to ask any questions about their work. So, and take a look around. Thank you so much.